Hi, I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week. My partner, Kristen Oaks-White, has the week off. The Louisiana Women in Agriculture Conference is happening next week in Alexandria. Across the river in Grant Parish, one woman is continuing her family legacy of growing the area's famous pecans and running the family's roadside store. As TWILA's Neil Melanson shows us, in the Littlepage family, pecan growing is in the bag and in the blood.
At McNeely's Crossing near Colfax, a roadside store still sells the pecans this area is famous for. Kathy Littlepage is minding the family retail here, where the store is as much a museum as a working business. It's definitely a mix of the old and the new, with people coming from all over to get some of the best pecans in the world.
My favorite time is when people come in and they want to talk about a memory, like waiting for the school bus on the front porch, and there's black, white kids must have all caught the school bus here either together or different buses.
Times have not always been easy. Recent hurricanes decimated the trees of Littlepage farms, and they're still cleaning up from those hurricanes.
What you see behind me here is the results of a lot of hours of bulldozer, track hoe, and tractor work to get the orchard clean. You can't harvest pecans if you've got limbs and debris on the ground.
Kathy does have some help on the farm, good neighbors and reliable farm labor help. Plus, when she needs some advice, she can go right to her mom at her kitchen table.
We went to all the meetings, and Ben was twice president of the Federated Pecan Growers, and we were very active in the Louisiana Pecan Growers. And we just started going to the meetings and bringing back whatever we could to share with the other farmers.
Catherine is the widow of Ben Littlepage, who was a giant in the pecan industry, leading the Louisiana Farm Bureau Pecan Advisory Committee and a tireless advocate for his field on the state and national levels. Catherine was right there, too, forming an organization to help farmers and ag workers find jobs when agriculture had a major downturn in the mid-'80s. Through all that work, it's easy to see where Kathy got her inspiration.
So the Littlepages have integrated a lot of commodities together and have been able to function with them together, rotating pecans, pasture, row crop. I started working with Kathy a couple years ago. She had a garden, she was wanting a high tunnel. We went through the EQIP program, built the high tunnel with her, got an irrigation system in it.
Keeping her family's legacy alive is vital for Kathy Littlepage. This will one day be a new orchard of pecan trees, providing the same quality for the next generation.
Between my mother's generation and my generation, which Title IX came about during my time in seeking jobs in agriculture, and then the next generation, there are very few barriers. So I want to encourage them to, grasp the bull by the horns, no pun intended. Let's, get you out there and get the help you need and encourage you so that you can be a viable part of the agriculture community.
Fortunately, you don't have to go to the Littlepage store to get their products, such as these delicious pecans, although it's definitely worth the trip. We'll link you over to their website at ours at twilatv.org. And Avery, you have to try these pecans. See, they gave me this bag, which was really generous.
So, yeah, very nice, and I see it was an $8 bag, so
right.
that's an $8 bribe is what I'm seeing that as. But I'm glad that you learned the lesson of bring something back from one of these shoots.
You know why I brought it back?
Why's that?
Because Kristen's not here.
That's evil. That's just wrong.
It is. I'm going to leave the rest of these for her, but you have to try these.
Yeah. So
they're
do love
some
me
of the
some pecans.
sweetest pecans I've ever eaten. They're slightly roasted, and they're just, they're super good. Yeah, it's.
I'm going to be sounding like this the rest of them. Time I'm on the air, but
if they weren't available online, it would still be worth the trip to head out there and get them. They're sweet, aren't they?
They're sweet. The aroma is really good. I love to put like pecans in my oatmeal, and there are lots of places pecans go with everything.
Buy some, because the Littlepage is, I mean, it's just worth it to get there. And they said they had a particularly good crop, but they're good nonetheless.
You've been knowing the Littlepages for a long time.
A long time. And of course, you know, early on I interviewed Ben, and you know, in his, he was just such a generous, giving man. I mean, that person you see in those pictures is emblematic of who he was. He was just always willing to give interviews and talk about it. He was truly an ambassador for it, and it's just great to see that Kathy's continue that tradition, and they'll be making pecans there in Colfax for the time being.
Well, I appreciate you going out and getting that story for us, and for the pecans. Sorry, Kristen, I'll eat them all. Thanks, Neil. Well, teaching you about agriculture, that's the goal of the Louisiana Farm Bureau's Women's Leadership Committee. That's what happens when you have pecans in your mouth. More than 70 men and women involved in agriculture gathered in Acadiana for the 2022 Women's Leadership Committee Leadership Conference. A cascade of crawfish greeted Louisiana Farm Bureau members as they toured Alan McLean's farm in Vermilion Parish. This was just one stop on the first day of the conference. The group also learned about growing, cutting, and arranging flowers from Rachel Duncan of Bayou Petals. Those on the tours said it was a lot of fun, but Louisiana Farm Bureau Women's Leadership Committee Chair Michelle Simoneau also hopes it was a great learning experience.
We'd like all Farm Bureau women to know what our local commodities are, to advertise, to eat local seafood, crawfish. We've been to Guidry Seafood Plant today, and they raise pond catfish and processed pond catfish, and we want to support our local commodities.
The second day was filled with lessons in improving your personal brand, DNA extraction from strawberries, that was really cool, and ended with a donation of about $1,000 in cash and books to the Children's Museum of Acadiana. If you would like to learn more about the Louisiana Farm Bureau Women's Leadership Committee, visit our website at twilatv.org. It will not be long before you're able to see vintage farm equipment and tractors in downtown New Iberia. The Tesh Growers Association recently bought this building on St. Peter Street. Not only is it an event center, the plan is to have old sugarcane harvesting equipment, vintage tractors, and other farm implements on display here. It's something the Tesh Growers have wanted to do for years. Lane Blanchard with the Tesh Growers Association says there's a good reason why all of this old farm equipment should be on display in Iberia Parish. Some of the unique pieces that will be on display include a tractor mount sugarcane harvester, some old field loaders, and lots of vintage tractors. Each year, 4 Louisiana groups get together to usher the best in the state into the Louisiana Agriculture Hall of Distinction. 3 inductees were named this year. Chancellor of LSU Alexandria, Dr. Paul Carell, Louisiana Network's Don Molino, and Louisiana Farm Bureau's Jim Monroe were all inducted into the hall this year. In addition, KLIL-FM in Moraville was named Radio Station of the Year, and Louis Coco, owner of KLIL, accepted the award for the station, which is known as the voice of agriculture in that area. Louisiana Radio Network President Jim Inkster says LRN is proud to induct this year's class.
Tonight is a great night for people who haven't necessarily been on farms their whole lives, but they have contributed mightily to the agriculture industry and promoting what is the most significant industry in our state. 3 great people in Jim Monroe, who logged a career at the Farm Bureau and made quite a mark. Don Molino, who's been the preeminent farm broadcaster in the state for a generation, and Paul Carell, who is an academician who has made his mark. So it's an outstanding class, and I know everybody will be thrilled to be here and honor these fine gentlemen who have been selfless in their promotion of an industry that quite often doesn't get the attention it should.
One of those honored at this year's event is no stranger to this show. For years, he was my boss and dedicated 47 years to Louisiana Farm Bureau. Jim Monroe is quite deserving to be in the newest class, inducted into the Louisiana Agriculture Hall of Distinction. James Ryan Monroe grew up in Gilbert, Louisiana, surrounded by agriculture.
Well, I was born into an agricultural family. My grandmother had a farm. My grandfather had a farm. It still had a little piece of it left. And then when I was 12 or 13, I guess, my folks bought a farm. And so, and my dad was a vocational ag teacher. And so I just kind of grew up in agriculture and being able to see agriculture and then doing it hands-on at a very young age.
His family grew corn, cotton, and soybeans on that farm and raised registered Angus cattle. Monroe moved away from the farm to pursue a degree in agribusiness at LSU. It was during his freshman year that he met 2021 Louisiana Agriculture Hall of Distinction inductee Ronnie Anderson.
I didn't have a brother, but Jim was as close to being a brother as I've ever had.
They didn't know it then, but their paths would be tied together because staying on the farm was not in the cards for Monroe.
If I had my choice, I would have really liked to have been able to go back to the farm. Our farm wasn't big enough to support that. And so I said, well, maybe it'll work out. But it didn't work out. It worked out in a different way than I had foreseen. And so the Louisiana Farm Bureau called and said, look, we'd like to do an interview and we're looking for an assistant commodity director. I didn't know what that was, but it sounded good to me. So if they wanted to hire me, I said, I'll be glad to come talk to you. And it turned out it was great. It was exactly what I was looking for as far as being able to deal with foreign policy and the problems that affect farmers and agriculture.
Monroe earned his master's in agricultural economics in 1974, 2 years after going to work for Louisiana Farm Bureau President Jimmy Gronyard. In 1983, Monroe became Gronyard's assistant to the president. Anderson was elected to the Louisiana Farm Bureau Executive Committee just a short time later and became president in 1989. The two would travel the state and country together for the next 30 years and often showed up wearing the same clothes even though they never discussed how they would dress. Fashion sense aside, it was Monroe's ability to read and understand legislation and regulations that impressed Anderson.
It was just amazing to watch him analyze the situation and be able to relay that to me and other members of the board and executive committee and commodity chairman and individuals like that needed to know exactly what was going on.
During his 47 years at Louisiana Farm Bureau, Monroe only worked for two presidents, Gronyard and Anderson. He also only had two administrative liaisons, and interestingly enough, the two, Billy Middleton and Ashley Middleton Stevens, are mother and daughter.
Jim was a real pleasure for me to work for. He is one of the smartest men that I've ever known. It didn't matter what subject we talked about or someone talked about, he always knew something about it. And Jim was and is still committed to Farm Bureau, I'm sure. If anybody needed him, I'm sure he would certainly step up to the plate again.
I never dreamed that I would get the opportunity to work for him. He was like a second dad to me. I mean, like you said, I had known him literally my entire life, but he was always my mom's boss. It was just a different situation, but when I came to work for him, I saw a whole different side of him. Like Mom said, totally laid back, never got ruffled. I saw him get ruffled a few times, not too often, but just loved the organization, loves the organization. Would stay, I mean, I laughed, he wasn't a morning person, I always beat him to work, but he was always there after everyone else. Always knew the answer. Any question you could ask, he knows the answer.
There's one job Monroe held that not many knew about: photographer. Monroe would travel with his friend and co-worker Michael Dana on the international trips taken at the end of each LSU Ag Leadership class. It's a program dear to Monroe.
The Ag Leadership program has really helped Farm Bureau. It's really helped all the other organizations as well for their leadership, because that's what really this was about. It wasn't about creating a separate organization, but for the leaders who received that training in Ag Leadership to go back to the organizations that they already had and work inside those and work for the betterment of agriculture in Louisiana.
The Ag Leadership program also teaches lessons on being the subject of a TV interview, something Monroe did often on This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
And Jim, thanks for being on the program today. That's where you go, thanks.
All kidding aside, Monroe now joins other Louisiana Farm Bureau leaders in the Louisiana Agriculture Hall of Distinction, including Gronyard, Anderson, and 3rd Vice President Linda Zonbrecker. That's what makes this moment emotional for Monroe.
What's that like for you, going into the same halls as these people?
That was something I never expected. I didn't expect to do that, to get that honor because I thought they all deserved it immensely. And I'm not sure I do, but I appreciate the honor.
Jim Monroe, 2022 inductee into the Louisiana Agriculture Hall of Distinction. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll share stories of the other inductees. If you'd like to learn more about the Louisiana Agriculture Hall of Distinction or see photos from this year's event, head over to our website at twilatv.org. Still to come on TWILA, we highlight one of the LSU Ag Center's research stations doing some really sweet research. Stay with us. You could play a role in creating new international trade partners for the United States. Right now, the USDA is accepting applications for the first of 4 international trade missions, this one to the United Kingdom. U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack announced those trade missions while at the Commodity Classic in New Orleans. Just the day before the announcement, Vilsack toured the Cargill Grain Export Facility in West Wego. It was there he saw workers loading 2 ships with grain, one destined for China, one headed for Japan. In 2021, the U.S. set a record for ag exports totaling more than $177 billion. Vilsack says China, Mexico, and Canada are the top 3 export destinations for U.S. agricultural products.
Japan is our number 4 destination. And I think what you're going to see over the course of time is USDA continuing to play an ever-increasing interest in additional opportunities for trade, not just in the big 3, but throughout our entire trading opportunity.
Vilsack was not the only ag leader at the Commodity Classic. American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall was there as well. He says almost every farmer he spoke with at the event had one question.
What can you do and what are you doing about the input costs? Fertilizer, energy, everything that we use, and you know, what should we be expecting and how can we help?
President Duvall got to meet with Rob Sharkey while at the Commodity Classic. You know Sharkey as the host of the Shark Farmer podcast, Shark Farmer Radio, and Shark Farmer TV. Rob and I hung out for a while and even took a walk down my favorite street in New Orleans. You'll see our antics on an upcoming episode of Shark Farmer TV on RFD TV, Tuesday evenings at 8:30 Central. The new season starts on May 10th. The LSU Ag Center has 15 research stations across the state. From sugarcane to livestock, rice to sweet potatoes, these stations are vital to Louisiana farmers growing the best crops they can. This week, TWILA's Carl Wiggers shows us how the Sweet Potato Research Station in Chase, Louisiana, and the Louisiana Sweet Potato Commission has been supporting farmers for 70 years.
Dr. Don Labonte has the most simple way to explain a very complex task that he has dedicated his entire career to.
I try to get back to the basics. I need to come up with a brand new variety for the industry. That is what I need to do every single day that lowers their cost of production and gets a better yield, hold up to the environment. That's what I got to do.
These varieties will soon be on a farm. That's where Labonte and his peers, like Arthur Valorden, will continue their research to help producers grow these varieties in the most efficient way possible.
Pretty much after 2 years of testing here at the station, we immediately go to the farm.
So we pride ourselves in being able to select and having the information to select for the best varieties, but at the same time we need to provide the growers with the tools to be able to maximize the genetic potential of that variety.
Labonte says the relationship and feedback from sweet potato farmers helps drive the work happening in these fields.
It just amazes me. I'll be harvesting at one of the busiest times of the year for a producer, and they'll take that morning off just to be with me to go through and look at all these materials because they are intently interested. Do you have a better variety coming along than what I'm growing today? I mean, they know what the answer, they need that bad.
The work that we do here provides direct answers to growers, and without the station, without the staff here, without our work, the growers will be hard-pressed to find the answers.
Tara Smith has been part of the team finding those answers for years. She says that focus on serving Louisiana farmers is what drives the team at this station.
We're here for the producers. We're here to address their production and their pest management constraints with an ultimate goal of putting more money in their pocket and feeding the world. It's really quite that simple.
You know, it's a challenge. You know, I see the need out there. You know, I see these growers that I'm looking at their cost of production, particularly this past year, it's just gone up tremendously. You know, shipping, boxes, you know, labor costs, everything is just, has just really increased a lot.
What's also increased is the reach of the research here, much to their surprise.
It blows my mind. I used to just answer questions from, you know, Franklin Parish 10 years ago, but now it's questions from Portugal, from Australia, from New Zealand.
And we're not only now continuing to meet the needs of our producers within the borders of Louisiana, but also we're a go-to resource for other domestic producers as well as several international entities.
This international impact does not happen without the support team members surrounding each of these researchers.
Many times you'll see the face of our faculty. You'll see Don Labonte, you'll see Arthur Valorden, you'll see Tara Smith. What you don't see are the support staff that are integral and critical to the success of our research and our outreach operations.
Without the station here, our growers will be disadvantaged and less competitive compared to other states growing sweet potatoes.
Luckily for us, this advantage is one we can all enjoy at every meal. In Chase, Louisiana, I'm Carl Wiggers for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
Though Louisiana's sweet potato acres have decreased a little over the years, Louisiana remains in the top 4 states producing the crop in the United States, behind North Carolina, Mississippi, and California. Again, this story is brought to you by the Louisiana Sweet Potato Commission, supporting our farmers for 70 years. Still to come on TWILA, we take a look at the resolve of farmers in Ukraine who are still working to plant their crops while their country is under attack. Stay with us. We're only a few weeks away from Easter, which means it's high time for a crawfish boil in Louisiana. Let's take a look at some crawfish prices from around the state. Just north of Lafayette, Davis Seafood has live crawfish for $2.99 a pound and boiled crawfish for just $1 more at $4 a pound. Millside in Ponchatoula has crawfish for $2.99 a pound live and $4.59 per pound for boiled crawfish. If you're around Shreveport, you can find crawfish at Bageron's Boudin and Cajun Meats for $3.25 a pound live and $5.49 a pound for some boiled crawfish. As we often remind you, prices change around the weekends and so does availability, so be sure to call ahead before you go pick up crawfish to make sure they have some and that the prices are still what we said they were. These prices are brought to you by the Louisiana Crawfish Promotion and Research Board, which reminds you to eat Louisiana crawfish, and to make sure you're doing that, always ask before you eat. While the war in Ukraine is crippling food production, farmers are there battling to keep the country fed. Ukraine has 40 million hectares of farmland and is known as one of the breadbaskets of the world. It's also the world's largest exporter of sunflower oil and among the top 10 exporters of wheat and corn. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky encouraged farmers not to flee, to carry on with their work amid the war. Farmers are still working in their fields, tending to their current crops, while some are planting new crops. Dairy farmers are still milking their cows and finding creative ways to move that milk across the country where bridges have been destroyed by Russian bombs. Ukrainian farmers have also been contributing to their country's war efforts by using tractors to steal Russian military vehicles and equipment. Numerous videos have emerged on social media of tanks left by Russian troops being towed away by tractors. Farmers say they are not just fighting for Ukraine, they are fighting for all of the other countries and places that depend on the products that come from there. And we thank you for doing that. Well, that does it for this edition of TWILA. Be sure to join us next week when we'll show you the challenges facing farmers here as they plant the crops they hope to harvest in the fall. Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also find all of these stories and more on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe. Turn on those notifications. That way you know when we put something new out. For all of us here at TWILA, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.